wasn't this blurring of the distinction between hard and soft targets in direct contravention of those subsections of the Geneva Convention?
What we did was to recommit ourselves to intensifying the struggle, to saying that some of the restraints that we had placed on ourselves as to how we conduct the struggle would need to be relaxed. And in particular, I would say then that where a military installation was in a commercial or civilian area, that restraint that we had placed on ourselves had to be relaxed. The tactics of the apartheid regime were drawing us into a morass where the rules of the games were reducing and were likely to reduce an honorable struggle and besmear it. And we tried to avoid it.
In fact, in waging the armed struggle, we broke very few eggs to make a huge omelette.
It was the Air Force target. Had that bomb went off at 4:30, it would have caught the majority of the people would have been, the overwhelming majority would have been from that place. But it went off prematurely, and it had been carefully reconnoitered. So there was our problem. And the target was selected not directed at the civilian population, but at the security force members.
There was a mistake that occurred that particular evening. It wasn't as filled with the security force members as had been seen in previous reconnaissance. They believed that the bar would be full, which was very often the occasion. So what we have been consistent with is the targeting of the security forces in the same way as Church Street. But in war, in conflict, of course, one can't always be 100% efficient, effective in an operation.
The African National Congress unreservedly apologizes to all civilians who lost their lives, whether in crossfire or any other circumstance. Our aim has never been to attack civilians. And whatever the intensity of the struggle, where civilians have died, we believe that it is appropriate that in our country today, in the interests of reconciliation and unity, that we should apologize for it, and we do so.
How does the ANC justify the usage of landmines on public roads in view of its having signed the Geneva Protocol?
Landmines were used in areas that were extensively patrolled by the South African Defence Force and also by the area protection units known by the term commandos. Most of those operations, man-laying operations, were in the border areas, the areas that were patrolled very, very effectively. I think it is common knowledge to the Commission here that part of the fence was electrified, and in most instances it was on the lethal mode, and there were gaps, and where they didn't have the fence, that's where most of the patrolling took place. The idea was to try and impede, reduce the intensity of these patrols. The African National Congress realized that after the few incidents where civilians were caught, the President called us in and asked us to put a stop to this method of operation. I gave the instructions to all our forces to stop using the landmine.
With our necklaces, we shall liberate this country.
If necklacing was at any stage part of the struggle, doesn't it in itself defeat the idea of a just war?
On hindsight, if we delayed in the judgment of any person too long in appealing for the end of this practice and to condemn it, then on hindsight, yes, we made a mistake. We should have done it earlier. It had to be reacted to as something that the masses had taken up under conditions of extreme brutalization and repression. And then you sought to channel that energy into proper forms of political action and unity with the armed actions that we were undertaking. So that explains the approach that we had to take. It would be an extremely foolhardy leader of the ANC of 1984-85, 85 I think is the period of the first necklacing, to have stood up and said, this is wrong, out with it.
Was Mrs. Mandela acting as an ANC member during the 1980s? And if so, was she subject to any organizational discipline?
It's correct for me to point out that the late President Oliver Tambo did send a message home intended to reach Comrade Winnie and others to get them to distance themselves from this method of dealing with enemy agents.
Young Mazan, kill a man, shoot to kill. Young Mazan, kill the poor, the farmer.
We need to talk about African tradition. There's no such thing as this was not a statement. It's not a statement of any kind, and wouldn't be read by any of this African youth as a statement. In Xhosa, this particular form of art, similar, is called Igwijo. And Igwijo is not a statement. It's not a political statement. It's a chant. You use it to miss. For instance, Amakwengwe, when they are going over long distances, they would be doing this thing. It's not a statement. You see, part of the problem with this is that somebody who comes from outside of that African culture interpreted it. And indeed, when you then write there, Peter Mukaba said, kill the boer, kill a farmer, he didn't. In the sense of a statement which represents policy. And it would not have been taken as a statement that represents policy. So there's no ANC policy which says kill a farmer, kill a boer and all that. But there would be a magwijo of all sorts. You have a Zulu song, not quite Igwijo, but it's traditional songs. Now, it's not a statement. It's not a statement I'm making that I will never visit Zululand. It's a song. I don't think we really... I really don't think that this... Certainly, I don't know Peter, whether Peter is here. He likes doing these things. And you could do different ones and we could translate them. They're different chants. Hey, hey, do. And they would be saying different things. Different things about the struggle. This particular one was picked out, as I say, and interpreted from outside of African culture and presented as a political statement. It never was.
Would I be correct in saying that what you've communicated to us is more or less what we have in most traditional cultures, also Afrikaans songs, like Simbamba, Mama se kindjie, draai sy nek om, gooi hom in die sloot, trap op sy kop en is hy dood, but you rock the baby to sleep. That's what you're saying to us.
There was a plan by the ANC at that stage to assassinate Dr. Buthelezi. With regard to that particular issue, it is true that a unit of the ANC did at some point take a decision to carry out an operation of that kind. When the ANC headquarters found that out, it countermanded that decision, and that operation was never carried out. It is also true, Chairperson, that especially the Department of Military Intelligence made it its business to sustain the story that in fact there was an ANC decision to assassinate Dr. Buthelezi when there wasn't, and did all manner of things to make sure that Dr. Buthelezi was convinced of this, and so that they could take particular measures in response to what was then seen as a threat, but which, as I say, Chairperson, a threat which in fact did not exist. I'm making the point, Chairperson, that we didn't regard the IFP, its members, as legitimate military targets. And therefore, at no stage were any decisions taken to attack the IFP as IFP. I'm quite certain that the overwhelming majority of members of the IFP have never been involved in this violence. Didn't like it, didn't want it, in much the same way that the overwhelming majority of members of the ANC would not want this violence. It's not. There wasn't a situation in which two members of the ANC in KwaMashu, one member of the ANC, one member of Ingat, one stands up and says, I, member of the IFP, I'm in favor of a federal South Africa. And this ANC one says, no, we don't like this federation business. I'm in favor of a unitary South Africa. They disagree, and then they draw guns on each other and shoot. No such thing. Organized gangs, political, were responsible for this violence.